I welcome you all today, all my heart and all my love. It's supposed to be 112 today here. It was 115 yesterday and incredibly hot. I was going to make this all about energy because I know you're all converts of energy. But I see so much confusion and so much bullshit on Facebook. I know some of you must be deluded by it. So I have to go to my usual position of trying to explain human subjectivity. What is what when we close our eyes and look within? What's real and what's not? What's just another idea? I keep stating over and over again, there are two different major kinds of spiritualities. That of Nisargadatta, Ramana, Robert Adams, which emphasize either the totality of consciousness or being the unborn witness beyond consciousness that watches the things of the world swirling around in your consciousness, and with whom you can learn to identify as the unborn. And then there are those who talk about staying in the witness state and only appear to be acting out in the world because their sense of presence is stuck not on the body, but on the spirit, or on emptiness, or on the unborn witness. So they're not really involved in the world. I did that. It got to be very boring. So there's another kind of spirituality. There's the spirituality when the heart explodes with love, comes back to life, and begins to see people and other sentient beings in their life. And we take special note of them as different from a radio, from a stove, from a sewing thimble. Because these objects have something that the other objects lack, namely the life force. Yes, we know when somebody else is alive in our presence. They speak, they act, they move around. We can feel their energies. We take them as being real. But all of these former spiritualities set out to destroy this idea and say this is just a dream, there's only you. And they have all kinds of odd ideas which they keep repeating over and over again, as if that they're the truth just by repetition. There is no separate self. There is no you. You are just a concept. Oh, always stay in the present. Be in the now. Send all of your energy into the now, into hearing, seeing, tasting the now. There is no absolute. There is no non-absolute. There's no separation between you and I. There's no separation between me and the world. We're all one consciousness. Any separation is artificial, and therefore questions are never answered, and questions are never asked. You're already enlightened. Stop striving. Drop your mind and just realize yourself in the now, which is complete perfection and beauty. To all of these, I say an unequivocal, you're full of shit. This is garden variety spirituality. This is the kind of spirituality you get from being alone too much with yourself, convincing yourself that your mind is the ultimate arbiter of truth. I'm speaking of a kind of spirituality that happens when you give up your mind, give up all your understanding, spiritual and otherwise, and then give up even just being in nothingness or in the sense of presence. All of these are garden variety. All of these are beginner understanding and beginning techniques. It gets more advanced when you read Nisargadatta, because he can entertain you with concepts about nothingness for days, weeks, months, and years. I'm talking about a spirituality that's entirely different. It has nothing to do with understanding. It has nothing to do with a sense of presence. It has nothing to do with no separation. It has nothing to do with loving others as you love yourself. I'm talking about the theory of God realization, self-realization, realization of yourself as God, realization of the manifest God in you. Now, what I'm talking about is very different from what Facebook teachers are talking about. I'm saying you exist. Just like Robert, when I called him and said, Robert, I'm frightened because I don't exist. And he said, of course you exist. You're talking to me, aren't you? And yet he was the master of talking about non-existence. So we start this kind of spirituality from a different place of not asking what is truth or what am I, but instead exploring the emptiness that we see and feel when we close our eyes and shift our attention inwards into our gut, into our heart, into our head, not the thinking mind, but what Robert called the gap, which is having consciousness, but not being aware of any objects in consciousness. It's that place where you wake up in the morning before you can say to yourself, I'm awake, I'm in bed, or another shitty day is coming. It's what Nisargadatta calls a sense of being. Robert calls it the gap. It's pure consciousness without any thought or any self-realization as something separate, as something that's in the world, as an object in a body in a world. Before these truths come to us, that's the gap. That's the sense of being, which Nisargadatta says is the highest self. But when you go beyond that self into nothingness, that's salvation for both Robert and for Nisargadatta. Imagine that. You've killed yourself. Aren't you proud of yourself? Yet your body still lives. But here's what's strange. For most people, it's a happening. For most people, it's a new beginning. Because what we find is not so much that we don't exist at all, but that the world we live in is too mundane to be bearable. It has not enough love. It has death. It has cowardice, brutality, racism, and all that. It is the daily grind where we have to worry about supper, getting food for the next 3 days, and whether we're willing to put up with Aunt Lucy for 2 weeks next October. Here I talk about God realization as God realized within oneself. And through that realization, rising outside of the mundane world into a world of ecstasy, freedom from knowledge, into a life of energy, of swirling energy currents, of feelings of ecstatic love, of knowing that the world outside there no longer touches us because we live a life of grace in God. And God is nothing like the terms they talk about on Facebook. Not the greatest master and not omnipotent and omniscient. These are all abstract attributes. But I'm saying knowing God personally, similar to an energy being that we can talk to and witness, who at the same time fills us with bliss, grace, love, and surrender. Now I just got done following some postings on Facebook that God does not exist, put there by Ben Gilberti, Chuck Hillig, and a bunch of others, and saying, the God you talk about is the God of medieval theologians and philosophers. It doesn't matter whether this God exists or not. I said, instead of saying the people are deluded when they believe in God, that the belief is sick and delusional. Yeah, we recognize that. It is delusional if we accept somebody's idea of God. But what if instead we look for God ourselves within ourselves? Perhaps paradoxically, by finding God in others first. Here we're talking about the experience of God, not a concept of God. I think it's absolutely correct to throw out all concepts of God. as being beyond time, as being infinite or whatever, being ineffable, being all powerful, omniscient, everywhere. And instead, we ask ourselves, what is it that motivates us from moment to moment to stay alive, to be in life? We can feel the life force if we just shut up and rest our attention in our chest, our gut, our diaphragm area. We can feel our life force, which is different from just being beingness without an object. Because here the object is a sense of being alive. Go inside. Feel your diaphragm move. Feel your breathing. And if you're silent, you can feel your heartbeat. When you put your fingers in your ears, you can hear the high pitch of tinnitus, or the voice of the absolute, of God summoning you. You can also hear the sound of blood coursing through your fingers. Then if you just rest in quietness, peeling into your heart and your gut, your lungs, and become still, you can begin to feel the dramatic range of activities of the energies within ourselves. I call Shakti, but others call Chi, Kundalini, Shakti, or energies. And once you begin to feel the energies, you begin to enter a new world. Because with these energies, you can use them to find God, or you can use them to heal others and to accomplish things in the world. So, when you sit with these energies and develop them over a period of years, start by feeling them in your hands. Start by feeling the energy move between each of your hands, meeting in the middle, exchanging energetic signatures, so to speak. If you can do that, you can begin to heal with the energies by placing your hands on a person near where they hurt, where they have a problem, and just willing your energies to flow in that area on the other person. The more you do this, the more you feel the energies flow in your arms. And you never begin to ever think about speaking about yourself as being the unborn witness. Because doing this healing, you're manifest, totally manifest, totally alive. You shake with these energies. You tremble with these energies. The more you play with the energies, the more you have control over them, the more you can use them for healing. But also the more you feel ecstatic, the more you feel bliss, the more you feel lifted out of this ordinary world into the world of the divine. And I say that because the more you know the energies, the more out of the ordinary experiences you're going to have. you can begin to feel the energies interact with your own life force, so that you know that the energies are different from your life force, but they work hand in hand. The energies, you might say, are messages from God and the attention of God, while the life force is what keeps you alive and sentient, to be able to witness and feel the energies. So now, with feeling energies, you can begin to act in the world, or you can stay with the energies and begin to leave the mundane world, and instead stay in a world of bliss, of love, of creation, of dancing energies, a world of no thought, where you realize that thoughts are just maps to the external world, and your maps really create the external world that we live in. And I don't mean that literally, that my mind is creating the floor I see around me, but my mind does create the concept of floor as supporting me when I walk, when I lie on it. And to me, that limits the usefulness of the term floor, because you can do so much more than that with a real floor, as opposed to our concept of floor. And we begin to slow down, in a sense, our perceptions and not skip ahead according to the concepts provided by our maps that fill in spaces in our experience. Instead, our minds slow down and we become more acutely aware of the energies. The energy in my lower body, my legs, in my calves, which are connected to the energies in my upper body. And I work with the energies. I know them. I feel them. They become more real than my experience of my physical body, until you get to the place where you no longer identify with your physical body, but instead identify with the energy body, one's own sense of presence, one's own sense of existence, not of any particular thing, not of Angela or Mark as people, but the sense that I exist, I am. Not with all the different ideas we have about ourselves, because those ideas are not floating around at the time. Our mind is more or less silent and quiet, yet we're just sensing our living existence and not putting labels on it. We're just feeling the energies. And we begin to notice that the world is not very stable. It's stable only when we're a thinker and we think in abstractions. Talk about God, immortality, the unborn, before time, after time, no space, all these abstract things, which means nothing whatsoever, but do not change. Instead, we feel the energies and we look at the world, and it's always changing. Our body's always changing. The energy states in us is always changing. So we no longer live in a solid world, but a world of change, where the energies change, the emotions change, love changes. And then one day, along comes a special other, such that when you see or hear him across the room, you're smited by their presence. You stare at them. You see them stare back at you. Then you pretend to ignore them so it's not so obvious. But inside, your heart quickens, your whole body wakens. You feel shaky. You cannot even approach this person. You don't know what's going on. You feel confused because of the energies. But gradually the ice is broken and you begin experiencing the energetic form of that other person. And you see it's so beautiful. Not their actions, they can still be assholes when it comes to their actions. Not their beliefs, their understanding, but how they experience the world and you energetically, perhaps filling you with an unbelievable amount of love for them. And they have an unbelievable love for you, which you express to each other. And when you express your love towards each other, you feel such a sense of devotion. Maybe you've never felt devotion like this before in the world, in your world, life and in the world. But suddenly your whole life is focused on them and they on you. You can't separate. You want to speak all the time or rest in silence, just being next to each other. You keep this up for a few weeks or a few months until you're heavily invested in them and your attention is focused on them all the time and their energies. You love them so deeply. You love them with so much devotion. And you forget more and more about yourself and you just care about them, what they want, where they're going. And you surrender to what they want, to who they are. And in that surrender, there's the realization of you as God. It's incredible how it works or when it happens. But usually there's a separation between you and your beloved, such that for a while you feel lost, utterly worthless, frightened, because the other is not there to pay attention to. And instead, all of the attention snaps back into yourself. And those qualities that you saw that you love so much in the other, you find in yourself. And it's such a shocking experience that all of these energies, this love, this devotion, this sense of surrender, is now totally you. You walk around as if in a daze. And this can continue for a few days. And then one day something unbelievable happens, where all that energy you've taken back, all the devotion and surrender that you've taken back from that other person goes into you. And God is so pleased that he or she reveals themselves to you in their original form, which is however you see it based on your background. I saw it as an explosion of light within me, an explosion of power, and an entity that was like a volcano. But after the fire and drong of self-realization happened, it gradually took on a sense of being a separate intelligence within me, one that was wise, yet active, and had enormous power. It was like a representation of the impersonal life force as the embodiment in subjectivity, as a figure of God, as a standard for God, which in my case always looks like a bundle of energy and light mixed together, who's always within me or around me. And this association continues for a time until you find that same light you find in God also in you, within the life force. Now you two are one. It's like one of the individual entities that you experience, the light and the power of God, is like what could be called Brahman, which is the abstract universal form of God. And then at the same time, there's you, who is that same representation of the life force in your body. So you have become embodied or incarnated. You recognize yourself as an incarnation of the life force. But the life force has two aspects. The individual aspect you feel every second in yourself as you, and the abstract part of the life force, which is the totality of all living beings. And it's not the totality in a sense as a group thing, but the matrix of sentience is the same in all of us, whether it's a worm, a bird, or a human being. The life force matrix that keeps this machine functioning and alive is the same in all. And that's Brahman. But you, as the one in this particular machine, the Ed machine, the Michael machine, the Stevie machine, you are the incarnation of that life force of God. So being an incarnation of God in this lifetime and a bringer of new knowledge to the world makes you an avatar. Imagine one day you're a normal fuck off, sunk in a mundane world. But 3 years later, you have become an avatar that you love so much, and so do other people, because they feel your power, they feel your love, and you can begin to change their lives, just as your own life was changed. Fucking phone is a reminder of the mundane world, isn't it? So, one day, you're in the mundane world, struggling to make a living, struggling to plan for meals, or to buy a house, or start a new career. And then, having given all ideas about who and what you are, including that of nothingness and emptiness, you go beyond that through love into the energies, into Shakti. The same Shakti you feel going through your body now, the energy in your hands, the energy you can circulate between your two hands, which you can use for healing. The energy swirling throughout your whole body, from your toes to your nose, to your third eye, downwards into your heart, into your stomach. And along with that energy comes such delicious love. You know, there are so many different things you encounter once the energies are awakened. First, you realize the energies aren't you, they're visiting you. They're controllable by you, but at the same time, they control you because they are interrelated to love. Love itself will attract the energies. The energies follow love. Wherever love is, the energies are there stronger. But they take you out of the mundane world of everyday practical life and the tribulations you go through living life on the human level. And they pull you up into the fantastic, into a life of bliss and ecstasy while still alive. And you become a teacher of others, passing on this bliss and this energy to them. Just like the Muktananda song, Kindle, how does that go? Kindle my heart's flame with thy flame, O Lord. Kindle my heart's flame with thine. O Lord of Yoga, Lord of the universe, kindle my heart's flame with thine. God's love is always there, and through loving another, through a divine relationship, you learn this love yourself and become it, and you can kindle it in other people's hearts. This is what I say you should be your mission, to become a lighter of the heart flames in others and to change the world where the energies and bliss of God are more important than solving the problems of everyday life. Now I love you all. I want you to feel my energies. I want you to kindle your heart's flame from mine. Now, the energies are not you and they're not God. It's like they're the voice or breath of God. And that's how you feel them after a while. Like quietly, God is kissing you with these energies. And all the feelings you've had about not being worthy, or being stupid, or being confused, or being a jerk, and everything everybody else calls you, leaves because you've been baptized in this kissing of God, these energies that are so gentle, that wipe you clean of any sin or wrongdoing. And that's another way which you leave the mundane world, because your attention is no longer with the mundane world, but in the energies and in love and in your own sense of beingness, of being alive. So you've risen above the mundane world, out into the divine world through the intervention of love from another, someone you love with all your might, with all your beingness. You love and love and love, and you want to surrender to that person, that being. Because in that surrender, you leave yourself open so that God can come into yourself and reveal him or herself to you in whatever way it'll happen in you. Because in every person, it's different depending on their background. And it will change over a period of time also. But feel the energies. I don't know whether you feel them now. I feel them very strongly. I feel them around my heart, my chest, throughout my whole body. There's a kind of white light associated with it, but not really. But it's very dense and very powerful throughout my whole body. And I feel it in the room around me. And I feel it in the rooms around you. Because once we come together like this, we're coming together, you might say, in the sight of God. And those same energies will be swirling about you and within you. Right, Rolf? Right, Jay? Right, Stevie? Remember, the energies are not God and they're not you. They're a friendly visitation, ultimately out of the life force. But they bathe you in a soothing energy that takes you out of the mundane world of desperate need, of confusion, of bitterness and fear, of not knowing where you're going or what you're doing or why. It takes you out of all of that. It takes you out of the seeking too, because you feel home. It's like when you go home with your lover. All that you want to do is go home and sit next to him or her in quietness, not even feeling the presence of the other, but knowing the other is there and being able to rest in yourself in the presence of the other. At other times, your awareness of the other is so acute. Your love for the other is so acute that it grows into devotion so deep, love so deep, that the only desire is to surrender to that person, to give your life to that person. And when you're in this state, God can come in because you're gone. You, with all your struggles and identifications, are gone, allowing an empty room, so to speak, for something new to come in. The love of God, the love of another, the love of your beloved, whatever it is, finding an empty room, something new rushes in. And oh, how sweet it is. How also erotic it can be. It can rack your body with orgasms that don't feel sexual, but your whole body writhes in this orgasm, which may begin in the sexual center, but gradually takes over the whole body, the heart, the womb, the throat, the head, and you're having full body orgasms that can last for hours. And this can continue for days. Men feel it slightly differently, usually as an ecstatic bliss that they don't want to move from. Although other women feel that too, a sense of bliss and happiness so complete that they don't feel or that they dare move for fear of disturbing it. You just lie on the floor, not moving, being the happiest you've ever been in your life because of how you're being held, it feels like, by God in ecstasy. These are the kind of experiences you begin to have when you become aware of the energies inside yourself and around you and in other people, whatever they're called. Chi, Kundalini, Shakti, energies, healing energies. And none of them are God, none of them are really the life force, but the attributes of the life force and the voice of God. It's there, like the manifest God is expressing himself through the energies and healing. or what you're learning about him or her. So let's just feel the energies. Feel the grace of God in you, wanting to lift you up out of this world into another world of ecstasy, of energies flowing inside of yourself, having colors or being white light, just feeling them constantly circulating around you, inviting you, touching you, licking you with sweetness.